Welcome back, Defenders. It's now been a month. It's been over a month since Ukraine has offered Russia an unconditional ceasefire across the front lines. And for more than a month, Russia has rejected it. Russia rejects U.S. proposed ceasefire, and instead over the last month, they've launched over 6,000 bombs against Ukraine. Here's President Zelensky. Today marks exactly 1 month since Russia rejected the U.S. proposal for a full and unconditional ceasefire. 1 month that has made it completely clear. Russia is the sole cause of this war. Without strength against Russia, there will be no will in Russia to accept and implement any realistic and effective proposals for peace. What's Trump's response to the Russians ignoring him for the last month? And Trump tells Russia to get moving on Ukraine peace negotiations. Trump put out a tweet, Russia has to get moving, too many people are dying, blah, blah, blah. It's the exact same thing he's been saying for 3 months. He's been president almost 3 months and has made no progress with the Russians ending this war, agreeing to a ceasefire, or any positive step. So Trump is saying publicly he's frustrated with both sides amid the ongoing peace talks. Here is the White House press secretary. This is what she had to say.
Are ongoing. I obviously will not get ahead of the president or his team, but I think the president has been quite clear that he's been continually frustrated with both sides of this conflict, and he wants to see this fighting end. He wants the war to end. We believe we have leverage in negotiating a deal, to a peace deal, and we're going to use that leverage, and the president is determined to see this through.
What both sides? Ukraine more than a month ago agreed to an unconditional ceasefire. And the Russians have been telling Donald Trump no for a month. And Trump is just saying, well, both sides are bad. When really the only thing Trump cares about when it comes to Ukraine is stealing their natural resources. Antagonistic tone marks U.S.-Ukraine minerals deal talks, according to Reuters. Maybe the deal at one point was mutually beneficial to Ukraine and the United States, but after that disastrous White House visit 3 weeks ago, Trump rewrote the deal, and this is extortion. This is basically Ukraine paying war reparations to the United States in perpetuity forever. So Ukraine, as it's written now, is never going to sign this mineral deal, and the next step, Ukraine has hired a U.S. law firm, Hogan and Lovells, to advise them on the mineral deal. Ukraine is stalling for time, trying to get as many deliveries as they can, hoping the political situation either in Russia or the United States changes. So this is actually pretty smart. Ukraine hired a U.S. law firm to look at the mineral deal and then make recommendations or maybe even argue with the U.S. Treasury Secretary over it. So it's a delay tactic, but it's pretty smart. I approve of this. And this is how I woke up this morning, guys. I woke up this morning knowing I was going to make this video for you, and I've got to see pictures and videos of dead civilians. This is in the city of Sumy, and Russia hit it with 2 Iskander ballistic missiles on Palm Sunday, as people were going to church. Russia deliberately timed this to kill as many people in the city of Sumy, this was the city center, going to and coming from church on Palm Sunday. Several children were killed, more than 83 people injured, at least 32 civilians dead at this time. The videos are there. If you want to see women, children, and elderly people killed. There are no soldiers. Nobody's in a uniform. Nobody even looks of military age. And Russia is just indiscriminately killing civilians on their way to church to terrorize the people of Ukraine. I will link the pictures. I will link the videos down below. But we need a breakthrough. We need the outrage to somehow reach Rubio or Waltz or Kellogg. Like, Trump administration officials need to start resigning in protest over Trump's inaction, Trump's unwillingness to do anything, to hold the Russians accountable for war crimes, for crimes against humanity, for genocide. And instead, all indications is that Russia wants to continue the war and start more wars. Moscow renews military recruitment efforts despite U.S. push for peace talks. Russia is massively expanding the size of their military through conscription, as well as signing contracts. There's speculation that a mass mobilization will occur after the May 9th Victory Day parade. Russia doesn't want peace. And this is what the president of Poland has to say. This is Duda. If anyone can make Russia stop the war, it is most likely only the President of the United States. The question is whether he will be determined enough to do it. Because for Europe, which is Russia's neighbor and which is facing aggression against Ukraine, it is also very important that peace is just and lasting. Joe Biden was never willing to do it. Joe Biden was never willing to increase sanctions on Russia to a 10 to force the Russians to stop this war. That would have triggered a global recession and economic hardship here in the United States prior to his re-election. Not a good reason. But here we are in 2025, and Donald Trump seems perfectly fine triggering a global recession and crashing the U.S. economy. So what's his excuse? Why he won't put sanctions on Russia's oil majors and cripple their economy to make them stop this war. He just doesn't want to do it because he likes Russia. And you can't see these pictures and videos without screaming into the void. Trump's envoy Witkoff meets with Putin and advocates giving Russia 4 Ukrainian regions. Steve Witkoff is an idiot. I didn't know who this guy was when Trump appointed him. He's Donald Trump's golf buddy from Mar-a-Lago, and he's a property developer from Florida. But this guy knows nothing about Russia. He knows nothing about Ukraine. He's never worked in government. He has no diplomatic experience. And this is who Donald Trump sent to go meet with a KGB Soviet colonel who specialized in human intelligence. What Vladimir Putin did for a living back in the 1980s is he manipulated people to, he worked in Dresden, and his goal was to smuggle in Western technology and Western intelligence to improve the Soviet economy. He's laughing. Putin is laughing his ass off that Donald Trump would send such an amateur, such a weakling, such a weak mind to meet with him. So Witkoff is starstruck. Witkoff, they've already met twice before, but this is the first time they were allowed to take pictures and videos. And the video, Witkoff is just starstruck. He loves Vladimir Putin. He thinks Putin is the nicest, most incredible man in the world. He's been so kind to Witkoff. This is what needs to happen. Steve Witkoff needs to go to Ukraine. How can you be the U.S. envoy to handle negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, and you've never been to Ukraine? You've never met with Zelensky. You don't know anything about this country. You're trying to surrender to the Russians. So I want to share this picture. I want to thank Prince Harry for visiting Ukraine. Prince Harry of the UK went to the Superhuman Center in Lviv to meet with victims of Russian war crimes. And just look at his face. Look at Prince Harry's face, seeing Roman Alexiev, a brave Ukrainian boy who suffered severe burns over 45% of his body after a Russian missile strike in July of 2022. What's the reason that Steve Witkoff has never visited Ukraine or met with President Zelensky? War crimes are being committed today. And Steve Witkoff is publicly saying, I don't think Putin's a bad guy. I don't think what the Russians want is unjustifiable. So Witkoff, Trump's special envoy, is publicly saying Ukraine has to give up all these territories. The administrative borders of Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson have to be given to the Russians just for a ceasefire. Not even a peace deal. Just to get the Russians to stop bombing civilians in Kryvyi Rih or Sumy, Ukraine's forces have to give up all of their fortified positions, basically go back 20, 30, 40 kilometers deep, and allow the Russians to claim these cities. And I don't know why more media outlets aren't using these numbers. 700,000 people live in the city of Zaporizhia. And Steve Witkoff is saying these 700,000 people have to be surrendered to the Russians. And it's about positioning. Right now, we have the human safari. The Russians are indiscriminately killing the civilians remaining in the city of Kherson, hoping they can get to the other side of the river. As soon as they get to the other side of the river, they can build up their forces, so when they want to start this war again, they can quickly strike Mykolaiv, they can quickly strike Odessa. If they're within artillery range of Mykolaiv, they can start shelling the city whenever they want. Same if they get the administrative border of Zaporizhia, 700,000 people, they're now in artillery range of the city of Dnipro, population 1 million. There's also Donetsk, the cities of Liman, Sloviansk, Kramatorsk. This is not a serious suggestion. This is not a serious proposal that anyone in Ukraine would entertain. The Russians, for over 3 years, have failed to take this territory through military force, and Steve Witkoff of the United States is saying we should just give it to them for a ceasefire. If you know this picture, this is the exact same thing. While Donald Trump is trying to carve up Ukraine for himself and get their natural resources, he's trying to surrender Ukrainian land to the Russians. It's the exact same thing, guys. Exact same thing. So if you're frustrated with the United States, if you hate the United States, you can just sit back and wait, because Donald Trump is destroying America. China strikes back with 125% tariffs on U.S. goods as trade war intensifies. So Donald Trump picked a fight with everyone in the world, and China responded. And then Donald Trump backed down, saying, we're going to not have retaliatory tariffs against Vietnam and Madagascar and Colombia, and we're just going to focus on China. China's the bad guy. For some reason, Donald Trump thinks if he can go head-to-head with China and win, that'll make him look tough, that'll make America look strong. But China is actually using this as an opportunity to destroy the United States. So China responded with their own 125% tariffs, and Americans are freaking out. I know if you don't live in the United States, you don't understand why I keep using iPhones and Apple as an example. But Apple was America's largest company by market cap, and peak to bottom, the share price of Apple dropped 30%. And here's the number. 61% of Americans who have smartphones have an iPhone. I know in Europe, the amount of diversity of smartphones, people in Asia, there's more Samsung, there's more Android operating smartphones coming out of China. But in the United States, 2/3 of Americans basically have an iPhone. And this is something that Americans enjoy. Every 2, 3, or 4 years, getting the latest iPhone released. So when Americans were figuring it out that the next iPhone they buy is going to cost $3,000 or $4,000 because of Trump's tariffs, Trump backed down. Trump exempt phones and computers and chips from his new tariffs. Okay, whatever. Smartphones, laptops, and chips coming from China, account for about 22% of US imports from China. So we now have 145% tariffs on 78% of the goods coming in from China. Right now, if I import the parts to make a computer, I pay a massive tariff, 145%. But if I import the fully assembled computer, I get no tariff. Truly a genius plan to reshore manufacturing. Like, once you actually start thinking about the numbers and what Donald Trump is doing, it all falls apart. Nothing makes sense. Imagine trying to manage a supply chain right now. Every 48 hours, the White House is announcing or unannouncing or re-announcing or creating massive carve-outs to a new trade rule. Why would anyone anywhere build a new factory under these conditions? And this is how stupid MAGA is. Like, half of the voting electorate in my country, they're complete idiots. And when you ask Americans, America would be better off if more people worked in manufacturing. 80% of Americans agree. Americans like the idea of more factories opening up and Americans working in factories. But when you ask the same people the question, I would be better off if I worked in a factory, 73% of Americans disagree. What MAGA wants is for impoverished Americans to be making plastic toys and working on assembly lines in factories, but they don't actually want to do it. MAGA wants impoverished Americans picking lettuce in the fields, not illegal immigrants. They don't want to do it. MAGA wants impoverished Americans doing construction and landscaping and difficult work out in the hot sun. But MAGA themselves don't actually want to do it. So Trump has picked a fight with the Emperor of China, and I think she is just going to destroy us. Like, even if Trump backs down, we've given China the justification to economically destroy the United States. Xi Jinping called on the European Union to stand united against US tariffs. China and the EU should jointly resist unilateral pressure to protect their own interests and international norms. There are no winners in tariff wars. They lead to isolation. So Russia is currently destroying themselves, the United States is currently destroying themselves, and China is using this as an opportunity to sweet-talk the European Union. The EU bloc is the largest trading partner or cooperative in the world, and China is using a charm offensive to get closer to Europe to counterbalance what Russia and the United States are currently doing. And it's going to work. This is a video I want to share with you from the Chinese think tank analyst Victor Gao. This is an interview he gave to Channel 4 News, and the Chinese aren't holding back.
China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out from the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
Yeah, how do you argue with that? So China is the manufacturer. They're the ones who produce goods and services at the lowest cost globally for things that aren't really made anywhere else. And yes, the United States has a lot of consumers and buyers. But if the United States cuts itself off from trade relations with China, China doesn't care. They will sell their cheap goods to the Middle East. They will sell to the Europeans. They will sell to their Asian partners. They will sell to Australia. Anyone who wants to buy their low-cost leading goods and services. Whereas Americans still have to buy whatever they want and need. And if they shut themselves out from the Chinese market, the only thing they can do is pay more money to get what they want and need. The end result of all of this will be inferior products for higher prices from countries. I mean, they're not going to care more about us. Like, nobody cares about the United States anymore. Rightfully so. So here is von der Leyen, and she thinks Trump's tariff chaos will scare countries, maybe even EU ones, into sticking closer to Brussels on trade. This will give the European Union more power. So if you're one of my European viewers, Donald Trump has been pretty good to you so far as destroying America's prestige and reputation, and I think people in Europe. I understand a global recession is coming. It's not going to be fun for all, but long term, Europe is the winner on trade here by Donald Trump being such an idiot. And here is the value of the euro against the dollar. And since Donald Trump initiated these trade wars going back 2 months ago, the dollar has lost 10% of its value against the euro. If I had gone back in time 2 months ago and put $100,000 in euros and then switched it back, I would now have $110,000. It's a pretty good return while the stock market is crashing. And this is the ruble versus the dollar. 1 US dollar is now equal to 83 rubles. And since, let's say, January 1st, the ruble has strengthened 36% against the dollar. This isn't just the ruble appreciating, this is also the dollar weakening. Trump claims he wants this because this will make our exports more competitive, but no, I don't really think this is a good thing. This is weakening the purchasing power of every American holding dollars. And this is how bad it's getting for the United States. China, Japan, and South Korea unite against U.S. tariffs. Free trade pact. Once again, Donald Trump keeps... Oh my God, guys. The Chinese and the South Koreans are willing to forgive the Japanese for World War II. They're willing to work with the Japanese because everyone in Asia now hates the United States. This genuinely makes me sad, guys. Like, I lived in South Korea for 6 years. The United States and South Korea had one of the best relationships in the world. And Donald Trump is destroying everything. Here's another graph I have for you. This is the number of Europeans traveling to the United States, and in the last 2 months, it's cratered. You can see Austria, Denmark, Germany, Norway, year-over-year flights, trips, they're all down 20, 30%. Every time a European or a Chinese person or anyone comes to the United States for vacation or business, they spend thousands of dollars. Hotels, bars, restaurants, coffee shops, ride shares, taxis. And the United States is just losing on everything because Donald Trump has made an enemy of everyone in the world. Russia's enjoying this. Here's the latest clip from Russia Media Monitor. State TV pundit takes turns mocking Trump. And I've actually been enjoying watching Kremlin State TV the last 2 weeks because all they do is make fun of Trump and make fun of MAGA. The Russians don't care. They have no intention of the peace talks succeeding, so they're just trashing Trump every night on TV, and MAGA's too stupid to know that the Russians don't actually like or care about them. So here are what the pundits are saying about Trump today. It's also good that Trump is a man of his word. They say, Gramps, you said you imposed sanctions and would not back down, and now boop, they've been postponed for 90 days. Trump says, did I say that? I say all sorts of things. We have to understand what Trump's words are worth. Let me remind you how respectfully Trump spoke about the leader of China. He said they understood each other very well and they're friends, and he is a very proud man. This did not stop Trump from de facto declaring a trade war against China. His team says totally unacceptable things about China. Trump misled even his own headquarters in the media. From the start, his headquarters exclaimed, "Oh, what a genius." Every time Donald Trump does something stupid and then changes his mind, all of Trump's supporters just say, "Art of the deal." Didn't make sense, but that's the art of the deal. Like Carolyn Leavitt, this is the White House press secretary, saying, "Everything that happened underscores the genius of our presidents." Look, this was a serious defeat for Trump. His position was significantly weakened. I don't know how he will crawl out of this. Perhaps at the expense of Iran? There's rumors that Trump wants to start a bombing campaign of Iran, so that could happen in the next month. Although everything there is also very unpredictable, I don't know what he will do next. Trump can't accomplish anything. And with every move, he only worsens the situation. Not only his own, but the US and the world order. Of course, we can only applaud this and wish Trump to keep going for as long as possible. Well done. He is doing it and making everything worse. Well done. Okay, well, the Russians on Kremlin state TV every night just celebrate Trump's stupidity, and what's the good news of all of this chaos is we're heading for a global recession. Global demand for energy is falling, and the price of Russian Urals oil has dropped to below $50 a barrel. The official Russian state budget plans for this entire year to average about $69.7 a barrel. That is a $20 greater than deficit for their budget planning. So Russia may lose more than 1 trillion rubles in government revenue this year due to plummeting oil prices. This is according to the Financial Times. Additionally, inflation in Russia is still horrendous. Russia struggles to curb inflation as bankruptcy is likely to surge. Russia's ruble rose to 81 rubles to the dollar, but inflation has hit 10%, deepening fiscal strain as energy revenues shrink in terms of rubles. Here's a chart showing Russian debt and the percentage Russians are paying on that debt. So this is 6%, 12, 18, and 24. And Russia's been holding central bank interest rates at 24 for a while now. And you can see the average percent paid going up, which means people can't make their minimum payments anymore. The amount of private companies defaulting on their debt in Russia is skyrocketing. Add in a global recession, add in falling oil prices, and we've never been closer, guys. We've never been closer to an economic collapse of Russia. It could happen this year. Here's a video of an oil refinery on fire. Ukraine had nothing to do with this. This is just Russia being Russia, but the partial ceasefire in the Black Sea and on energy infrastructure that only Ukraine agreed to for some reason, that's going to expire in like a week or two, and Ukraine's going to go back to hitting oil depots and oil refineries. Frontline reports Russia ran out of armor, so Ukraine is stopping waves of troops with just one machine gun nest near Pokrovsk. There are videos. I always recommend the fantastic channel Reporting from Ukraine, and I'll link this down below if you want more of the tactical analysis on the battlefield. And the Russians are attacking with civilian cars. They're attacking with golf carts. They're attacking with electronic scooters that have no armor protection. A single machine gun can handle all of these attacking forces. The Russians did get a resupply of donkeys. I'm seeing more donkey videos this week. So here is a Russian soldier admiring his new warhorse.
Дядь Дим, смотри, машин нет, аж ишаков пришлось использовать, короче. Аж вот до такого дошли, видишь? Чита ты. Молодец, молодец. Вот, на пастбище.
My sympathy goes out to these donkeys. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Germany commits 11 billion euros through 2029, leads new electronic warfare coalition. Thank you so much to the German people. Norway to allocate 938 million for training of a Ukrainian brigade. Thank you so much to the people of Norway. UK and Norway unveil 580 million in a joint drone funding package. Thank you once again to the people of Norway and all you fantastic Brits out there. I just want to mention this fallen hero. He deserves our remembrance. Ukrainian F-16 pilot Pavlo Ivanov killed during a combat mission today. Captain Pavlo Ivanov, an F-16 pilot, died during a combat mission. He was 26 years old. Eternal glory and eternal memory to the heroes of Ukraine. Russia will be defeated. Final video I want to share with you is once again from friend of the channel, Richard Woodruff. He organizes these retreats for recovering Ukrainian defenders. Usually they're in the hospital in Lviv, and Richard organizes for 12 at a time to go up to this resort in the Carpathian Mountains. They're allowed fresh air and they do activities and exercises to help them. But I'll just let Richard explain it. Here's the video he put out yesterday.
Also, you know what I somehow forgot to mention? Vidnova! Vidnova! It's happening again. This is the 6th iteration of Vidnova. And once again, we're sending 12 heroes into the Carpathian Mountains for a 6-day rehabilitation. That is both physical and mental rehabilitation with professionals. That is 3 meals a day. That is accommodation. Everything is included for our heroes, and the cost is just $160 per day per participant. So please, 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 if you can help with the fundraising, we are aiming to reach $12,000 for those 12 participants over 6 days. Absolutely everything else completely included. So if you can donate, I'll leave a Way4Pay link. That's the easiest way because it goes straight into the NGO. And then we can send it over to the people at Vidnova. And then if that doesn't work, then I will leave a PayPal fundraiser link. But please, please, please only use that if the Way4Pay doesn't work. Reason being is then we don't have to pay so many fees from it going from PayPal to then into the accounts. So yeah, it just makes life a bit easier. And then everything goes into the NGO automatically rather than me having to transfer it from the PayPal to the NGO, yada yada, etc, etc. So yes, Vidnova 6th edition happening in just 12 days now. So please, 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 please support it, guys. This makes a huge difference to rehabilitation for defenders from the front lines of Ukraine. Those that are giving their lives to protect all of us in Europe, and all we want to do is give them a little bit of mental restoration and yeah, hopefully mean that they can deal with the trauma that they are facing every day on the front lines. So дуже велике дякую, as always, and Slava Ukraini.
I'll put the links for Richard's fundraiser down below, as well as this video, if you want to see more of what they do in the Carpathian Mountains for rehabilitation. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.